Hello there, wonderful, magical, sexy people. This is Mihai from Romania from Studies on Magic blog, and today we are going to take a closer look at the seals in my previously published booklet, The Magical Grimoire of Pope Honorius from 1736. We have no idea if the date is real, probably not, but still it's an interesting manuscript. This is somewhat of a closer look in comparison with older manuscripts and previously published works that are somewhat related to our grimoire, something that my friend Alexander F. would like to call a deep dive, whatever. In April last year, I made a small post announcing the translation of this tiny but important manuscript of the Grimoire of Honorius. The day I announced my forthcoming translation of this manuscript, a gentleman from the Goetia Facebook group called J. Crow, whom I commend, correctly identified that one of the seals of the manuscript I was translating, that of Smodo, bears striking similarities to the seal of Scorpio from the Archidoxes of Paracelsus. So, it's taken from Paracelsus. Is that a correct statement? Yes. And no. Well, let me explain. Yes, it does ultimately derive from the Archidoxes. I will grant him that. And no, well, one, there are actually doubts if Paracelsus wrote the Archidoxes in the form we know and love, and more likely this treatise was the handiwork of one Jacques Gohori, who possibly authored a number of texts such as the Fourth Book of Occult Philosophy or the Arbitel of Magic. But we digress. A second no would be that somebody didn't simply take an Archidoxes book and copied the seal from there and wrote Smodo underneath, and did not happen. And that did not happen with the Grimorium Verum either, where this seal became associated with Astaroth. But there are links and treatises that suffered changes along the way. As you can see, in the same edition from 1603 from Frankfurt, we have two seals with minor differences. One on page 336, which we will call A, and one on page 344, which we will call B. The most similar seal to our seal is B, so we can make some comparisons. The most striking thing we can observe is the seal of Smodo has the outer ring full of gibberish that is not present in seal B, so we will do away with it for the moment. We can start to see similarities despite their differences. The top seal is somewhat similar, with the second seal adding a martial glyph. The middle seal is quite similar, with no added circles in our figure, and the third seal is basically the same thing. But there are some missing links. Other than this part, the small grimoire has a third part detailing the 12 rings with which spirits can be conjured, the so-called 12 anneaux, and these can be found in a class of French manuscripts called the True Clavicules of Salomon by Armadel, exemplified here by the Lansdowne manuscript 1202. On page 158 we find this curious talisman in red and black. Is it similar to the Archidoxes? Yes. Except the outer ring with seals, the words are identical. The top seal is quite similar if we ignore the small moon. The middle seal is similar as well with modified terminations, while the bottom seal suffer a modification, making the Saturn-like seal of the Archidoxes look more jovial. It is similar to the character of Smodo. Yes, again. The outer circle is present on both. Despite of the latter's legibility, the top seal is strikingly similar, the middle seal is migrating from a trident to a three shape, and the bottom seal seems to keep the similarity to the Archidoxes. I have here my personal copy of the color facsimile edition of the manuscript Lansdowne 1203 that Jeremie Segouin published, with cover art by myself of course, and here we have a slightly different seal, colored in blue, and the description of this seal is as follows. This pentacle receives the virtues of the spirits of Jupiter and Scorpio, which procures it the force of dissipating terrors and panics, like for instance having bindings done with needles and other similar malefices. It is to be done on copper also because we can engrave it with the burin, around the day of 20th of June, in the day and hour of Jupiter with a new moon. The version in 1202 tell us that it is the pentacle of the angel Barbiel, ruler of Scorpio, and that is precisely why we have his name on the outer circle along with his seal. 1202 has added the name Samael, the archangel of Mars. And where can we find this Barbiel, angel of Scorpio, with this seal? The magical calendar, of course, that all-purpose Paracelsian classic from 1620, published by Johannes Baptista Groschedel in Frankfurt, of all places. And in the same column that is headed by the name and the sigil of Barbiel, we find at the bottom of the pentacle of Scorpio, along with our figure from the Archidoxes that corresponds closely with figure B. But that is not all. Our seal of Smodo evolved into something much more well-known, namely the seal of Astaroth of the Grimorium Verum, which you can find in all books of magic, or on t-shirts and keychains on Etsy. Why? Because people are greedy as well as untalented, and they would like to sell their grandmother's ass on a stick if they thought people would pay money for it. The similarities are striking. The top seal inside the circle is similar, although the cross with circles is new. The character in the middle has both endings in that specific 3 shape. The letters are missing and the outer circles are a hot mess. But still we can recognize among the mangled characters 3 shapes that are reminiscent of the seal of the angel Barbiel. So now we have a full picture. Our grimoire with the seal of Smodo probably influenced the Grimorium Verum through some missing link, itself being influenced by Le Veritable Clavicules de Salomon per Armadel, which got their seals and sigils from the Calendarium Magicum, which got them from the pseudo-Paracelsian Archidoxes Magica. I'm gonna have to stop you right there because I have some news. Now, one day before the final edit of this episode, I thought, why not complicate myself? Because when things are simple, they could be more complicated, and when things are complicated, like our manuscript, they can always be even more complicated. So I sent my work to Mr. Joseph Peterson, and in his wonderful and eternal generosity, he said something to me that still haunts me now. He said, you can find these seals also in manuscript Sloan 2897. Great. I do not have that manuscript. I do not have a copy of it. I do not have it scanned. I do not have a microfilm of it. So he sent me some images, and I was blown away. Now, when I saw the images that were from this manuscript, Sloan number... Now, when I saw the contents of this book, the contents of this little manuscript, I was even more surprised than finding the Harvard manuscript, because this, my friends, is the missing link I was looking for. So I'd like to thank Joseph Peterson and Dan Harms for providing me with images from this manuscript, which I am not allowed to show you. Without the written accord of the British Library, I cannot possibly show you images from this manuscript. But I can show you a tracing of the seal that I want to work with. So I'm going to show you a tracing of the seal from the manuscript. This is not the seal itself. I do not want to get sued by the British Library. I'm not using this for monetary purposes, but this is a tracing. This is a very, very close tracing of the seal. So this is the seal of Astaroth. This treatise bears the name Alberti Parvui Tractatus Scientiarum, published in the year Mdxkli, which means 1544, which is obviously spurious, by one Johann Yanglon in the city of, take a guess, Frankfurt. This is my rendition of the seal of Astaroth from Sloan 2879. As you can see, it is our missing link, and perhaps other similar manuscripts may be. As much as I can gather, the Hebrew letters in the outer circle are modern. At least they do not bear any resemblance to any Hebrew rendition of Astaroth, Barbiel, or Samael. This would only be a comparison of Sloan 2879 with the Grimorium Verum. The top seal is of course identical, and we know that it is a part of Barbiel's seal, and the inner seals are, as expected, without letters, Irmo and Labum, strikingly similar, except for the cross with circles at the top of the Grimorium Verum. This concludes our study of only one of the seals, but believe me when I say that all of the seals of this grimoire share a similar path up to the Archidoxes of magic, and an exhaustive presentation of all of them would render me homeless. In conclusion, I'd like to thank my honorary patrons who have sent me manuscripts and books, and without which this episode would not have existed, namely Daniel Clark, Joseph Peterson, Daniel Harms, Jeremie Segouin, and of course my current patrons, Elizabeth, Adley Nichols, Justin Sludge, Alexander Cummings, M. Alcock, Belle Wood, Annelise Antoinette, Netop Avis, David Mackey, Zachary Murray, Stian Kulistin, Arias, Joe, and Peter Di Mauro. Thank you so much for watching. Please keep an eye on my Studies on Magic blog. If there's any questions, please comment, and check out my Patreon, where I try to post every week unpublished materials from manuscripts. Have a good day.